Is your data secure? Whether or not your data is secure is mostly relative to the tools available to steal your information. I'll be referring to data as information saved digitally. But back to the original question, is your data secure? To even begin to answer that question fully, let me show you an example using your own imagination. Imagine you have a box and you fill it with goodies. Fill that box with anything of value. Just fill it up to the top. When you're done, close the box, lock it up using a padlock. How easy would it be for anybody to break that lock, open the box, and steal your goodies? Easy. All you need is a tool known as a bolt cutter to break the lock, open the box, and steal your goodies. But rewind and put everything back in the box, close it up, then lock it up. How can we prevent that from happening? One way might be to place your locked box inside of a locked room that only an access card can open. Everybody's box has an individual, unique access card that's specific to you. So you have an access card specific to your room. It's not impossible to get through, but it makes it tremendously more difficult for a thief to enter in, break your lock, get inside your box, and grab your goodies. What happens if you legitimately need to get inside of your box, but something happened with your key, your access card? Maybe you ran it over, maybe you lost it, maybe your dog ate it, whatever excuse you have, you don't have your access card anymore, so what do? Your first inclination might be to go to the front desk and request a new access card. But what are the questions they're going to ask you? They want to verify that you are who you say you are. And the easiest way to do that probably is just to ask for a driver's license. Can a driver's license be faked? Yes. Of course it can. The question now then becomes, is your data secure enough that you can have your goodies inside of the box? Is it secure enough? That's a question for each of you to ask yourselves. Maybe some real-world examples will do you good. For example, Sony, I don't know if you know, has been hacked more than 10 times by hacking organizations, and there's a lot of rumors of why it's happening and what information they're getting, people selling the information. I don't know. But Sony has certainly been hacked a numerous amount of times. Domino's was hacked. The thieves didn't steal very much information, but what they did was they held the information for ransom and said, Domino's, pay me 30,000 euros, which is about 45 to 50,000 US dollars, or I will release the information to the public. A man was sentenced to 3 months in jail and a $100 fine for stealing information from Microsoft and selling it to a blogger in France. Little details like that, but the question then is your data secure enough? About around 1965 was when the first computers were being made. The computers were about as big as rooms, and they were very expensive. You know, you had to actually pay for time on those machines, and that was expensive too. You had to be rich and wealthy to be able to even afford to pay for time to use the machines. Well, 3 years later, in 1968, Bill Gates was in 8th grade. No schools had computer labs. He was sent to a private school, and it was one of the first schools in the entire world to actually have a computer. And they were upgraded computers so that it couldn't just handle one student at a time, it can handle up to 12 at a time. But Bill Gates was one of the youngest people in the entire world to be able to use a computer, and he was in 8th grade. That's how he got his start. So he spent countless hours on it. Now mind you, the computers were still time-oriented to where you had to actually pay to use the computers. So the only reason they kept the computer lab at that school was because parents could afford to keep paying the time for the students to go on there. So Bill Gates was up there late at night. I mean, he was really, really into it. One day, though, he was 15. He decided to go ahead and steal a bunch of passwords. This was 1968. He was stealing passwords from the computer. But he was banned from using the computer lab because they found out what he was doing. I forget what he was using the passwords for. But that's what he was doing. And then he went to used colleges and so on and so forth. And we know Bill Gates' story by now. But I find that interesting. Now, just remember, generally, data is secure. What about yellow?
6 minutes, you got 2 more.
Oh, okay.
He's looking there.
I did this.
But generally, data is secure. And as a web developer, I understand more than the average user what goes on behind the scenes on any given website, and web technology especially. But generally, your information is secure, but it's like going back to the box. Can you fake an access card? Pretend you're somebody else by having a fake driver's license. And we're all familiar with the process of trying to verify your identity to get into an unlocked account. I mean, have you ever clicked on a forgot your password link on a website? I mean, haven't we all? Well, it's the same process. The difference between cyber world and the real world is in the real world you can have cops, who can help deter and arrest people. But in the cyber world, it's all imaginary. But basically, your information is real, and then you have the cyber world, which is imaginary. So there has to be a gap, a link in there, I guess you can say. And that's the only reason why hackers can do what they do, because you actually have data you care about that's on an imaginary system. So, but just remember, whether or not your data is secure is mostly relative to the tools available to break your system and steal your data.